I'm continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a little bit as I move along. Right now, I am in the first book of Samuel. This is chapter 25. It is a bit of a long one, and so I will be dividing it into two chapters. Not two chapters, two videos. Not sure there's a good breaking point, but we'll see. Okay, chapter 25. Samuel dies. Nabal rebuffs David and refuses to give him food. Abigail intercedes, saves Nabal, and gives David a present. David is pacified, Nabal dies, and David marries Abigail. This is an interesting story and a bit weird, but here we go. And Samuel died, and all the Israelites were gathered together and lamented him and buried him in his house at Ramah. And David arose and went down to the wilderness of Paran. We're going to pause just a second. It says they buried him in his house. This doesn't mean they buried him, they didn't dig up the floorboards and stick him underneath the house. No. When it says buried him in his house, people, especially wealthy people, would have had their own sepulchers attached to their household. They would have had their building that they actually lived in. They would have had like a farmlands, and then they would have had a sepulcher, a cave, or someplace to bury their dead. All of this land would have been considered their house. So the term does not mean exactly what it does today. It's, as I said, they didn't cut up the floorboards and stuff Samuel underneath. But anyways, verse 2. And there was a man in Maon whose possessions were in Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats. And he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding, and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish, and evil in his doings, and he was of the house of Caleb. Now remember, Caleb, him and Joshua were the two spies that brought the good report. And so Caleb was given the land of Hebron, which is just south of Jerusalem. Now, the wilderness of Paran is south of Israel. It's not even within the land of Israel, or, might be in the southern part of Judah. So, Nabal is of Carmel, of the house of Caleb, but he's in Maon, shearing his sheep. So, anyways, verse 4. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep. And David sent out 10 young men. And David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him that liveth in prosperity, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now let thy shepherds which were with us, thy shepherds which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. Ask thy young men, and they will shew thee. Wherefore, let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants, and to thy son David. And when David's young men came, they spake to Nabal according to all those words in the name of David, and ceased. So the message of David is, look, we've been here. We could have taken your stuff, but we didn't. We left you alone, and you've been at peace. We've been kind of here to... And, ask your servants. We have not done nothing to harass you. So, bless us here. We're all hungry. Give us a little bit of food in gratitude for us not taking it, That's the message David sends. Verse 10, we get Nabal's answer here. Verse 10, and Nabal answered David's servants and said, who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Shall I then take my bread and my water and my flesh that I have killed for my shearers, and give it unto men whom I know not whence they be? So David's young men turned their way, and went again, and came and told him all those sayings. And David said unto his men, gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff. Okay, so he refuses to give them any provisions. And so David's saying, well, now we're going to go to war. Now we're going to go take it. Now remember, this man Nabal was described as being churlish. And well, this means or rude, rough, hard. He's a very selfish, very prideful man who doesn't like anybody. And so I like his thing. So, who is David? There be many servants nowadays that break away every man from his master. Say, you want food, you go back to Saul. He was your master. You're his servant. He'll give you food. Don't come to me. It's an interesting response there. And, given that Saul's trying to kill David, and I think it's pretty well known that Saul's trying to kill David, it's also, he's basically telling David he'd rather have David die than give him any food. And so David gets angry, and he gets his men together. And when it says 200 abode by the stuff, that means the camp. These guys aren't running around naked, and they aren't just going around with their weapons and armor. They are camping. They have provisions. They have, as it says, stuff. So he left 200 men to guard the camp, and he's bringing 400 to go after Nabal. Verse 14. But one of the young men told Abigail, Nabal's wife, saying, behold, David sent messengers out of the wilderness to salute our master, and he railed on them. But the men were very good unto us, and we were not hurt, neither missed we anything, as long as we were conversant with them when we were in the fields. They were a wall unto us both by night and day, all the while we were with them keeping the sheep. Now therefore know and consider what thou wilt do, for evil is determined against our master and against all his household, for he is such a son of Belial that a man cannot speak to him. I think we're going to pause it there for this video, but I like that. One of Nabal's servants sees the transaction there between Nabal and David's servants, and he goes and tells Abigail. Because remember, Abigail is described not only as being very beautiful, but of good understanding. She was a wise woman. She knew the ways of the world. And he goes and tells her and says, look, these guys protected us. They were there in the south. They kept us safe. They kept our sheep safe. We never lost anything. I think it was also very likely that if a sheep wandered off, David's men helped them find it, because they said they didn't lose anything. And again, Nabal here is described as a son of Belial. This is a term for a wicked man. You frequently sexually immoral, but also just greedy or ungrateful. As he says, I like that a man cannot speak to him. In other words, this guy is so rude, so, you might say untactful if you want to be polite about it. But it's just, you can't ask him anything. He will not help anybody in any way. It is all about him. Maybe he should be diagnosed as narcissistic. So now they're turning it over to Abigail to figure out what to do, and we will pick that up in the next video.